Hey, how's it going? Welcome to Life in Comedy. I'm your host, Will Beckton. This is a podcast in which I talk to comedians about comedy, find out what makes them tick, find out what makes them not tick. I'm also curious what it's like to make a living off of a personality trait, basically. I plan on talking to stand-ups, improvisers, sketch performers, comedic actors, humorists, all kinds of comedians, asking them similar questions to kind of find out what is universal with the comedy experience and what is kind of more unique to the type of comedy they do or just themselves as an individual. A little bit about myself. Most recently, I was the engineer of Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend. That was an amazing experience, as you might guess. I was at Team Coco for about 12 years total and was in a lot of interesting rooms with a lot of hilarious people, Conan being one of those, obviously. Prior to that, I performed improv comedy at the Upright Citizens Brigade Theatre in New York. That was like in the early 2000s, and there was a lot of funny people there too. I'll be talking to some of those people and kind of compare notes on what that was like, because that was a pretty special time. At least it seemed like it to me. My first guest today is somebody I know from those UCB days. He is one of the most reliably funny people I know, and also a really good guy. He was a writer on Key Peele and played the much-loved character Garrett on the show Superstore. Ladies and gentlemen, Colton Dunn.
We're just two dudes. What are you drinking?
Two dudes. Just ginger ale.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just have a bistro glass.
Looks like a very watered down whiskey.
Yeah, it looks like the next morning after one of my dad's poker games.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, I am here with Colton Dunn, amazing improviser and now very successful actor
Somewhat.
and old UCB pal.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming, man. I appreciate it.
Of course.
So we met in New York, and it was probably like 2000, I want to say.
Oh,
Something
yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was definitely any later than 2001, I'd be surprised. But we were in a level 1 class together.
That's right.
Yeah.
Who's our teacher?
Pat McCartney.
That's right. Pat McCartney.
Yeah.
And he'd take us to the bar after class.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Pretty much every class. Yeah, that's one thing as far as UCB, especially in the 22nd Street days.
Yeah.
Peter McManus,
Mm-hmm.
that bar was almost like an extension of the theater.
Oh, 100%. It was. And I mean, I think in general, back in those days, and still somewhat now, but there was always like the bar. You know, there was the place you did shows, and then there was the bar that you went to afterwards. And so I feel like sometimes theaters now have the bar built in. You know, IO here used to have that.
Yeah.
I don't know, the winds have changed as far as like everybody going out after the show. And again, I'm sure some people still do it, but I feel like it's just not the same kind of thing.
Yeah, it would be like your teacher would basically, and like it would be like homework.
Yeah.
It
was always part of the like a bit of the identity of being an improviser. It's like that's where the good stuff would really come out. You know, you'd go hang out at the bar, and then you'd laugh with your friends. You'd build that camaraderie that shows up on stage, but also you might come up with the great bits that you're going to write, and but really you were just like there all assisting each other slowly towards, low to hi-fi alcoholism.
Totally. Well, people would always say, it was pretty much a big excuse to act like you're doing something like George Costanza, like watching Home Alone at somebody else's apartment or whatever. It makes you feel like you're doing something. You're from Minnesota, right?
Originally, from St. Paul, Minnesota.
Yeah. And then did you move to New York with UCB in mind, or what brought you to New York?
A little bit. The theater itself was not open.
Yeah.
But I had taken a trip after high school. I took a year off of school. I had gotten a scholarship to go to the University of Minnesota, but the scholarship allowed me to take up to 2 years off of school. So I took a year off, and during that year, I took a trip to New York just to check it out, to travel, And when I went out there, there was a comedy sports show, which I did. I did comedy sports. It's a short form improv. But then there was this, my friend was like, oh, you got to see this other show. And it was a sketch show called the Upright Citizens Brigade. And it was at the KGB bar. And they had like a little...
That was like different levels, right?
Yeah, it was like the KGB bar. And then above the KGB bar was, I want to say it was called the Red Room or something.
That
but
sounds
it was like,
right, actually.
It was like a theater up there that did shows. You know, go there, watch the sketch show, and it blew my mind. Like, it was like...
Because that's how they would develop the material for the TV show sometimes, right?
So.
I think there was kind of like all
around that
one
time
organism.
because they had started, this is a little bit before their TV show. So they were just out there doing their show.
Yeah.
I believe. Because at the same time, I was also doing comedy sports, which had a lot of members from this other sketch group that was sort of a New York-based sketch group called the Burt Furschners.
Okay.
Mike Rock, Chris Tallman, super funny dudes. And also, great sketch comedy. But there was just something like about UCB, like they were kind of like aggressive and they broke some of the rules. Amy was in it,
there was a prank element sort of.
There was some prank elements. Yeah, they do pranks on the street, which was like, that wasn't like, now it's like people are like, whatever, somebody doing something on the street. But like back then that was kind of like a fresh thing. Now a lot of people were doing, hidden camera stuff. But I just remember, I forget what it was. It was like some scene where Amy Poehler had a boot knife. And I can't even remember what it was, but she kicked her foot up and a knife came out of it. And it was the funniest thing in the world to me. And I just remember like laughing about it and just being like, damn, I never seen like a comedy show like just like it was just so raw and like
dude, she was so electric
and
like,
she was just
cow.
like and as a woman too, like I just never seen like people bring it like that, you know, and like comedians didn't seem like tough or cool, and I'm not saying like these guys seemed really cool,
but compared to like short form,
to short form or just somebody like Ian Roberts, like because then you had like Ian Roberts who looked like a football coach. He didn't look like he'd be doing comedy, much less doing any acting or anything like that. And like he's this like just aggressive way of like I remember the way he would get angry. I just thought it was so amazing. And then my friends were doing the comedy sports and the Burt Furschners, and so I just decided to move out there and move out to New York instead of go to college. And that was, I guess, had to be 1997.
Wow. Yeah, because the level 1 class, it was like basically UCB made everybody take level 1, even if you had some experience, because like you were well seasoned. Like by the time I met you, you were already like a really good improviser, especially compared to other people in that class.
Well seasoned would be a weird. Well, I was definitely I knew how to do improv because I had started in high school doing short form improv comedy, and then I had if we met in 2000, like I didn't the theater opened yet. Probably I'd been already out there for about 2-3 years. In the city doing I did shows with Victor Varnado. I don't know if you remember that guy, but we like went out and did shows.
Super funny, at
the time I was also though still very young. At the time, but
comedy speaking,
I was so I would still have to take the class, but that was back when the theater was smaller, so it was a little easier for them to kind of, they knew that I could do what they could be on the Herald team, and because they gave me internship and I just interned through all my classes. Because the biggest obstacle obviously back then is paying
the $300 for 8 weeks,
for 8 weeks of class, and so I just could never do that. I literally couldn't afford that. I did.
I had to plead hardship at one time. Actually, Rob Lathan gave me $300 one time because I was about to like.
Wow.
He was like, "Are you gonna do level 3?" And I was like, "Dude, I don't think I can afford it." Like, I think I gotta like take some time off or quit. And he's like, "No, man. Like, there's no like, you don't want to like lose the momentum I actually still owe him $300.
Dude, that's good. With interest.
That's a good dude.
That's a good chunk of change.
Yeah. If you did the equivalent of what $300 meant to us then, I don't know what that would be now, but it would be like, I would say like $5,000 or something like that. I mean, it was a lot.
I mean, it would be a lot of money.
Deal.
Something that's so expensive that you could now not do it.
Yes. There was a barrier. Yeah.
I mean, that is one awesome. That's a great story, Rob. That's cool.
Yeah. Him and Stack are like the two, like if I think of like just the ultimate nice person out of that world, it's like probably Lathan and Brian Stack.
Yeah.
But level one is so funny because you have people that are like you, like people that are like in it, people that are in it for the long haul. And then you also have people that are like advertising people that are just curious or actors that want to like, exercise a certain muscle. Or
especially back then. I mean, especially back then, like now you could pretty much guarantee most people in there are like there because they want to do maybe just do improv comedy or even are clearly like comedy focused or actors. But back then it was a lot more of like I'm trying to get out of my shell and be comfortable in public. I work at this one job, but I used to love doing this thing. And the idea of even it being a goal to finish an improv school, like back then, was not even a thing.
They were kind of making it up as they went along a little bit too. There would be like all of a sudden there'd be like a new level. They'd be like, now there's a level 4.
Level 4, guys.
Oh, okay, I guess there's a new level. But yeah, I mean, I still have like literally like Patrick Carone, really good friend, magazine guy. Like I texted with him this morning.
No, I remember that. Dude, we still talk every now and then. I think I message him on Twitter or something. Yeah.
And then Josh Gilbert, who I ended up doing the Tommy Chong documentary with, like significant lifelong friends came out of that class, which is kind of the point a little bit. I remember
Josh one time I got hired for, I think it was like Boiling Points or like, it was some like, one of those like random things. It was like one of the first, it was a TV gig I got hired to do. I got paid, obviously. And I remember I bought like this like hat that I thought was cool, this like little like derby cap, and I was like, oh, this is a cool hat. And I got it, and I like walked into McManus. Josh is there, and he goes, you got a working actor's hat. Did you get a job?
Yeah, dude.
I was like, yeah.
He was surgical verbally. Oh man, it was so funny. This just jumped out of my head when I knew we were going to talk. Like there was one time because you were on Pound, right?
Yeah.
Which is a great group. It was. I didn't realize it until I looked it up recently, but it was all the Naked Babies were in Pound.
Oh, yeah, all the Naked Babies.
But like one time you took the stage and you like kept your backpack on, and like I don't know if you did this with any regularity, but I remember this vividly.
And I would give it to somebody or something.
Yeah. But it was just like. It just had so much like swagger to it. I was just like, holy shit, man. Like it really stuck with, I mean, this is like 25 years ago. And I still remember just literally just this one instance of you taking the stage. Yeah. I think you literally like took it off, handed it to somebody and then started. I think
there was a while where I was doing that, where I would come on stage with my backpack on and I'd give
like
it to somebody.
Walked off the street.
Like I just came in. It was very much like, I love you said swagger. Like for me, it was like a Mr. Rogers bit, of like kind of coming in from the day and like taking my stuff off.
This is my inside outfit.
What did I do? Did I put Chris Gethard in the backpack once?
That sounds right.
Like I think there was one night where it was either like his last night as the manager or he was doing something. I remember coming out and that had become a thing that I'd come out in my backpack and I'd open it up and there'd be something interesting in it. And I feel like I came out of my backpack, I put it down, I opened it up, and Chris Gethard got out of my backpack.
Well, he's double jointed. So
totally. Yeah. And he was young. He was super young then, so he was small. He was a little guy.
Yeah, he was like, it's like I always think of like Gethard, Gemberling, and Zach Woods were kind of like the prodigy guys or whatever.
Yeah. The geniuses that roll in.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, snap.
Yeah. Yeah, they like took the bus up from high school or whatever. I was like, what the fuck?
Where did these guys come from?
So one thing that's cool to me, because I, having been at that time, like, at UCB at that time, and kind of, to me, it was obvious it was a pretty special place and a really good time to be there. But the thing that I didn't really have much overlap with until later was Late Night with Conan O'Brien.
Yeah.
Because UCB was almost like the farm system. I mean, especially for bits. I mean, there were some writers there like Stack, and Secunda was there for a little bit as a writer. And also people like Dorff and McCann would do ASCAT and stuff like that. But I mean, you could watch Late Night in almost any night and have a pretty good chance of seeing like you or another UCB performer like in the sketches. Like
Celia, I remember, was the casting person from Conan. And it was kind of, like you'd see in like, sort of a movie about like a group of theater people where they're like, oh, so-and-so is in the audience tonight. You knew when she was at shows.
Yeah. Or at McManus, I think.
Or at McManus. Yep. She'd hang out there too. It's so funny because it's like, living through it and looking back and seeing like how like almost it is, very, very just like generic, but also in the world of the genre. Like you do a big show, she's there, and then she hangs out and tells you, I remember her telling me that that was a great job in the show. And then like 2 weeks later, I get a call like, oh, there's this bit, wanted you to come and do it. And then it's like, once I did that bit, then I started doing more bits. But I also like completely remember sitting there and watching everybody be on Conan and being like, oh man, I want to be on Conan. I could do that. Yeah, it was definitely one of those things where I was like, oh, I really want to get that. I really want to do that. Then I did it, and then I started doing it.
Dudes Aplenty was super funny.
Well, and that was the first thing that I did,
really?
Too. Yeah.
Wow.
On Conan.
And so that was like a boy band that Andy, they were building a boy band around Andy. Am I remembering that right?
Andy Blitz had created a boy band.
Gotcha.
Or he was a songwriter, I believe, in it. And Conan was building the boy band.
Mm-hmm.
Andy Blitz wrote the piece, I guess. And then so and so it's like, it's that time making of the band, all those like building a band on TV, kind of like American Idol, but they're like putting together a whole group. And so Conan wanted to get in on that action, so he built his own band, and of course they're, horrible, and he writes a song for him, and it's ridiculous, and he gives us all different, we have new names, and my name was Samantha, because, at the time it was funny, he's a guy, but he's got a traditionally female name. We all had different poses, I remember, I had to hit a pose at the end of the song, but then we did a live performance on the show.
Oh, wow.
Like we actually had a choreographer come in and teach us choreography, and we like went into the studio and recorded the song, and then went out and did a live performance.
The energy
on Conan
of that
O'Brien
must have just been insane. Like
it was
a
unreal.
Big, yeah, there's a big
unreal.
difference. I did pre-tapes because like if you work at Conan for a while, like at some point you're gonna be in something. They're just gonna be like, we need a laconic guy who looks like he'd rather not be here. Will, get over here, But there's such a big difference between the pre-tape stuff and then, just the tape rolls that they play for the audience and then actually doing something like on the stage, energy-wise.
Oh, for sure. And like, and we did the pre-tape for the kind of the package that they play, but then he's like, and now here's Dudes Aplenty. And so then we come out and, this is late 90s, right? So everybody watches TV, still at this time. It's like so to be on a live thing on TV that I knew that like when I did it, I knew like all my random family members are watching this.
That's
like
the hi mom moment.
Yeah, I mean it was they don't really unless you like play a sport, I guess you don't really have that sort of live event television kind of feeling that much anymore. But yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
And
I can't believe that was the first thing.
That was the first thing that I did.
That's insane. I thought it was going to be like the 10th thing or the 12th thing.
And on top of it, it was like all the other guys were like Broadway, like certified, singers and dancers, and then me.
Oh, that's funny. Oh, man. Yeah, nobody to like really compare notes with or whatever.
No, they all got the choreography right away and then like had to like kind of adjust it a little bit so that I could do what they were doing.
That's amazing. So then the next big thing, and I had heard about Boom Chicago, but I think you were the first person that I knew that went. Like, that place is amazing. Like that.
Yeah,
I don't know how many people know about Boom Chicago, that like outside of the, comedy nerd
Yeah,
world.
it's not super well known to most people, except for that super comedy kind of nerds sort of know about it. But Boom Chicago is American theater, or is started by some American improvisers. A theater in Holland. It's a Dutch theater, and I say that to respect the length of time it's been there. And a lot of the founders of the theater now, I think, have basically become Dutch, and some of them live there now and raise their kids there. And it's also, at the time, it was populated by pretty much all American improvisers. Now it has a much more diverse, cast. They have people from Britain. I think they actually have some Dutch performers in the show now.
Oh, that's cool.
People from all over who now learn how to do improv as improv is sort of spread around the world, which is great. But when I was there, it was very much this American style improv comedy theater in the heart of Amsterdam in the Leidseplein Square.
Yeah.
But I had not even heard about it when I auditioned for that. I didn't know what it was.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Didn't know what it was.
Dude, I mean, the people that were there are just insane. Like Jordan Peele, Seth Meyers, Josh Myers, his brother, who's electrically funny, Ike Barinholtz, and like the entire brain trust pretty much of Ted Lasso, Jason Sudeikis, Joe Kelly, and Brendan Hunt.
That's right. Amber Ruffin.
Fucking nuts.
Tarek Davis.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Tarek. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I went there when the Tommy Chong documentary played at IDFA, which is like this documentary festival there.
Okay.
I think it was like 2005 or 2006, but I went there and they were still playing the Christmas in Holland video that you and Jordan did. That's so fucking funny. I mean, like basically, it's like you guys kind of doing like a riff of how Christmas is different. It's like a rap, but it's like this is what Christmas is like in Holland.
In Holland, they have a different sort of Christmas mythology.
Yeah,
Santa Claus does not have elves in sort of their story. Santa Claus has Zwarte Pieten.
Of course.
And Zwarte Pieten means black Pete's.
Okay.
And so the black Pete's are, now to be, charitable, they're his helpers.
Okay.
Okay. But in reality, they were his slaves.
Whoa.
Being that their version of Santa Claus, which they call Sinterklaas, it's a different guy. So it's not like, they call Santa Claus Sinterklaas.
Oh, okay.
It's like a different guy. He's got these slaves that he brings with him from his plantation down in the South, and they kind of come up, and he brings all the gifts for all the good kids, but the bad kids, the Zwarte Pieten, grab the bad kids, throw them into a sack, and bring them back to Sinterklaas's farm to work. That's sort of the story.
That's like literally that's what it is.
Story. If you're bad, you will be kidnapped into slavery.
Wow. So it's you. The video is like you and Jordan, like basically on like the streets of
just on the streets. Yeah,
like,
it starts off. We're just walking around from the Leidseplein, basically to the Museumplein in Amsterdam. So the way that he's portrayed is, They go out and they hire all these, African and Dutch African actors. No, I'm lying. So the way that they portrayed Zwarte Piet is just by putting white people in blackface, just straight up blackface.
Oh God!
And so when you would go there, and I think it's kind of tapered down now. I'm sure if you have any Dutch listeners, they'll be like, "No, we don't do that anymore." but some people still do it, I'm sure. But back then, it was like not a big deal to them. They thought it was cool. So like around the holidays, and they kind of celebrate. It's not like right on Christmas. It's like a little earlier when they start doing a lot of the festivities in Holland. Somewhere around beginning of December, I'm like riding my bike to work, and I'm seeing all these kids like super excited with these balloons with this sort of cartoon blackface character.
Okay.
Who's like, ah!
Oh my God.
And like kids,
this is your first whiff of this?
Yes, that was my first whip. I don't know why is this happening?
Yeah.
And so I get there and somebody kind of explains it to me and I'm like, what? Like, it's blowing my fucking mind.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, there's like white guys, who are like out like dancing and like little elf things with blackface on.
Oh my God.
And like giving cookies and treats to the kids. Paper noting, I think they call it, or something like that. And so like giving like little treats to like the kids, and the kids are like, yay. And like kids, they're kids. So it's like any black person to them is Zwarte Pieten.
Yeah.
So they start like yelling Zwarte Pieten to like other black people.
Yeah.
And they're like, ha ha, everybody's like laughing, like, ha ha, he called you Smarter Pete because, you're a black guy. Ha, ha.
Oh my
God. And
everybody's
kind of laughing and you're like, what the, what?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And so that's where the video kind of came from.
Oh man.
Sort of us being like, well, we want to kind of, acknowledge this and kind of call it out, for what it is.
Oh, man.
And so, me and Jordan Peele, which is now is also very funny because, he's got his whole breadth of madTV, which is great. But like to see, sort of this sort of like, legacy, epic director, he's like busting out little raps on.
I'm trying to remember the name. Was it called like Midnight Massive or something? Like there was a show that I went to, and I think it was a late night show, but they played that tape roll like as basically to warm up the audience, and it just fucking brought the house down. And then was madTV, was that did you move from Amsterdam to LA? Or?
No. I moved from Amsterdam back to New York. And kind of started trying to get back involved with the theater for a moment at UCB and tried to get on Saturday Night Live. Basically, that was my goal.
I've always wondered that.
And so I moved back to New York and, unfortunately at the time, coming back from Amsterdam, being in my mid-20s, like partying super hard, like I think I had a little bit more, I probably had too much focus on party
lifestyle
and just lifestyle. Like I also, was kind of like, it wasn't great in my relationships and like and balancing that with, working on my stuff. So, but that was ostensibly the idea was I was going to go back to New York and I was going to bust my butt and try to get on Saturday Night Live. And, and in that time frame, like I started knowing people who worked at Saturday Night Live, so that it became even more of a reality. And so, like one of the people that I knew worked there
was McKay head writer at that point, or was it Tina, or who was the?
I think it was Seth. So Seth Meyers.
Oh wow!
I was able to get my tape in, and they looked at it and they brought me in to do like a live show, like a sort of a pre-audition before the actual audition, but like I still had to sign all the contracts,
right? Like at certain theaters, they'd
do like showcases, and then this was sort of like, who knows how many more steps would have been afterwards. I don't know for sure, but from my understanding, it was if I would have gotten past this part, then I would have done the audition at the studio. That's just like in the cold room, and then from there. So that's as far as I got was that show before, and I didn't make it, and I believe that season they hired Finesse Mitchell.
Mm-hmm.
And then I moved to LA.
Was the LA transition hard, or did you have like
loved it?
That's good.
I absolutely loved it.
That can eat some people like it's not easy, and other people. But I guess you had a soft landing because there's so many. Team Chicago people there. Like,
don't get me wrong, I was completely broke. Like, I wasn't like living a cool life, but I also just didn't care. I said, I partied a lot, and I did a lot of live comedy shows, and
which usually springboarded into a party of some sort, or at least a hang.
Into a party or a hang, and I was fairly content just doing that. Like I wanted to do other stuff, but I wasn't like hung up. I was just kind of like enjoying it, and it was like a new place and new people, a lot of coming out here was meeting a lot of the Chicago people that had moved out here that I didn't really know too well from New York, meeting the Los Angeles people who were already here. So I had about a year before UCB, the theater opened up out here.
Yeah.
Where I just kind of got to like sort of get in with the comedy scene here.
Yeah.
The improv comedy scene.
Like iOS people.
iOS and Groundlings, a little bit of that. And then UCB opened, and because I was already out here, they just like let me be a teacher right away. So then I started teaching.
Oh, that's great.
So I won't say that I made it. Like it was like, because like I still remember like digging through the couch of Jordan's apartment where I was staying for free, just sleeping on it, and like digging through the couch looking for change to get enough change to buy a frozen Tombstone pizza from 7-Eleven. I remember that being a huge victory.
That was
if I could pull together that like $2.98 or whatever it was to
get a
frozen pizza.
I always loved your place on Curson. I'm not sure how long you lived there, but that was a party house.
Dude,
that was
a
fun.
house. Ike Barinholtz and Josh Myers lived in that house before me.
Oh, okay.
With Hayes MacArthur. And yeah, I moved in with Mike Petrondo and my old buddy Andy Ritchie.
Nice.
A lot of people did live there, stay there. There's a guy named James Pumphrey.
Yeah. He's super funny. Yeah.
So yeah, James Pumphrey, who's like one of the main guys at Donut, which is like this really big YouTube car channel. But like back in the day, he was just like sleeping in a tent in the living room of Camp Hollywood.
Okay.
Yeah.
So madTV was interesting because, I mean, UCB wise, Andy Daly and Donna Fineglass were part of madTV.
Yeah.
But there's a huge Boom Chicago crossover.
Very big.
And then the next time I remember hanging out with you kind of in this period was we were both at Aspen the same year.
Yeah.
You were doing, I think it was called Crime Scenes.
Yeah.
The thing that Joe Kelly wrote.
Yeah. Joe Kelly, Rich Telrico. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a super funny show. And the Tommy Chong documentary played at Aspen.
Right.
So I remember us going there. And that was a cool year. The Dave Chappelle Block Party was that year. So Michelle Gondry and his very, very like Natalie dressed son were kind of wandering around. You'd be like, hey, there's Michelle Gondry and his son.
That's right. Eliza Coop.
Yeah.
Remember I think she won that year.
It was a big year for Aziz. Aziz
that's right.
And then Whitest Kids.
And Whitest Kids.
Yes,
that's right.
It was fun. And then there was that, do you remember that party at just like the rich dude's house or whatever?
Yeah, dude. Holy shit. Yes, I do remember that party. There was like a movie theater in that house.
It was insane.
It was an insane house.
Yeah,
I remember just walking around being like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, I think that was the universal feeling. Was everybody just like, what is this?
Didn't somebody crazy come and start playing piano at some point?
Yes. Yeah.
I can't remember who it was, but it was it was like a major recording artist.
Yeah.
Like, started playing piano and singing.
I don't think it was John Legend, but it was somebody like that. Yeah.
It was in that world. It was like somebody you were like, wait, what?
I remember because Besser, like there was, I think it was, it was UCB, and I think, I want to say 3 Arts had a house or whatever. And that was a big
100%. The 3 Arts house was nuts.
Yeah. But I remember one time Chappelle came, there was like a party there. He looked around, he just kind of like surveyed the room and then left.
Oh, really? That's hilarious.
I was like, fuck. He was like, nah, I'm not going to do this.
Yeah. I mean, that was such a weird, Aspen was a weird, fun place. I'm really glad that I had a chance to do that.
Me too. That was the only year I went. And I felt lucky. Yeah.
Yeah. But Aspen was great.
So Key Peele, obviously, iconic show, and you also get to work with, like, if not your best friend, definitely one of your best friends, like Jordan Peele.
Sure.
And also Charlie Sanders.
Yeah.
Because I remember when you were like at UCB, like when we first met, you would talk about Charlie. You'd be like, oh man, my buddy from Minnesota is going to move out here. So fucking funny. Such a good guy. Like, just wait or whatever. And then he totally lived up. It was, I mean, you talked him up pretty, I mean, I was like, is he really this dude? But he's fucking so fun. I mean, I was on Team Brooklyn with Charlie and just like, that guy could make a meal out of anything. Like any like, you just say one thing and he's gone,
he
can
just do anything, man. Yeah. He was, and we grew up together. We grew up in the same apartment building.
Oh,
Charlie did. But yeah, he was on Key Peele, and then Jordan and Becky Drysdale, who was like my roommate when I first moved out to Amsterdam. And then later, Phil Augusta Jackson. And then everybody, Rich Del Rico, also great. Alex Rubin, good friend of mine.
Yeah, I mean, that so much talent on that show. So what was the writer's room like? Did they run the room, or would they come in out? Were they kind of like too busy to be in the room all the time?
No, they were totally there. We didn't shoot when we were writing, so we wrote everything, and then then they went out to shoot.
Gotcha.
So there wasn't really too much overlap in the writing process.
Gotcha.
So they were there for sure. Ian Roberts, Jay Martell were sort of the showrunners, and they kind of, I guess you would say they ran the room in the sense that they, organized it and kind of ran it that way. But Jordan and Keegan were obviously always there. And just a great, I mean, one of the best, I've been so very lucky with the jobs that I've had. Obviously there's always like there's crappy jobs everywhere. But like with a lot of times what happens is people are like, I got what I dreamed of and it sucked. You know?
Yeah.
That kind of situation. But with me, both the times where I've gotten like a quote unquote dream job, it has completely been that. And Key and Peele was totally that. We'd get in, we'd probably have our first meeting at like 10 a.m. We do this thing where we have a dookie session which just meant that you float little dookies. Think of like little floating poops in the toilet where it's like just any idea.
Balloons,
yeah,
like see if anybody likes
something
this. Something
silly that happened to you on the bus or something you saw at the mall. And then we try to see if we could turn that into like a bigger sketch piece. So kind of had that pitch session and then we'd just go off and write. And everybody would try to write 2 or 3 sketches a week. So you'd go off after that and maybe have a couple ideas of sketches to write. And so you'd go like write a sketch or something, go out to lunch with everybody, and then, come back, do a rewrite on a sketch, maybe work on something with somebody else, or just go home. I mean, it was just the best, best work day.
Well, I got to mention Superstore because that's like...
What's that?
I rewatched the pilot a couple nights ago.
Okay.
Fucking dude, really well performed and really well written show.
Right. Like good pilot.
That really strong pilot.
Yeah.
And your character is just fucking awesome right out of the gate. Did that feel like different territory, like as you were making it, or was it more like once people kind of like saw it and talked to you? Like at what point were you like, holy shit, this feels like a big thing or whatever?
It never did. I mean, it just kind of, it was good. I don't want to take it. I want to say like I didn't think it was good. It always seemed good, but you know, like when you're working and you kind of are in the business for a while, like whether or not something is good isn't always the tell that it's going to be successful and move on from anything other than just a pilot, right?
Yeah.
So I definitely thought that it was good. It felt, at first it felt a little out of my wheelhouse only until I realized it was even more in my wheelhouse because, and even in that first season, if you watch it, like Garrett gets a little bit smarter. Like, he starts off, he's kind of dumb, or he has some dumb takes every now and then, and that was sort of an artifact from just that I had been brought in a lot to play like a kind of a dumber guy, or sort of like an unaware guy.
Yeah, a guy with blind spots.
Sure, I mean the extreme of that would be on Parks and Rec when I'm just like the animal control guys who are like completely stupid. But and so I'd played a lot of those kind of characters, or somebody who's just bad at their job, or it doesn't it doesn't. And Garrett is bad at his job, and he doesn't care about it. But but the one thing that I realized the more as the series progressed is that it was just like even less about him being dumb and just more about him just being a chill kind of dude, even keeled, kind of like the way I am. And so it basically got a lot easier because I just literally would just go to work, sit down in the chair and go behind the counter. Just say whatever they told me to say. I have to try too hard. It was wonderful.
It's interesting for me because coming from my perspective, I'm somebody that did improv a long time ago, basically. Like I didn't really continue on. Like I did some performing like in the LA theater, like Finkelstein and I did that that storytelling show, which Pumphrey was great on, by the way. He was kind of a regular, and he would just fucking let it fly.
He's got good stories. Yeah, you should get him on this show.
Oh, dude. Yeah, for sure. That's a good idea. But I haven't done like a Herald in a long time or whatever, But I'm always curious, do you think that improv kind of rewired your brain, or do you think your brain was kind of already like that and improv just kind of was a good fit for you? Does that make sense?
Yeah, interesting. I mean, improv definitely had to have rewired my brain just because I've done it so much. I think anything you do that much, but I think I probably had a brain built to be rewired well by improv. Yeah. For sure. I mean, I got it, but I also got into it very early in my, when I was in high school, I started, doing improv and doing comedy sports, short form, watching Whose Line Is It Anyway and trying to play along, in my house, come up with my own jokes and bits. So yeah, my brain was obviously, I think, built for it. But I think that definitely anytime you kind of commit to something, it can't help but make some sort of, changes. And it also, in a way, it helps you a lot in reality, but also in a way it doesn't, because everything is kind of a comedy scene to me. Like when a weird thing happens, like if it's
serious, it's just more heightened or whatever.
Yeah. And so like if when weird things happen, like sometimes I'll have like a laugh response, to a weird thing happening, or, somebody will like tell maybe a story or share a piece of information that's not intended to be like funny or something, and I might be like, "Whoa, that's insane!" Well, imagine this, and then
what if this happened too?
Geez, and they're like, "Oh, that would be horrible. Why would you think that?" So,
I can relate to that.
So maybe so, but I say for the most part, any rewiring was for the good.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, as somebody that didn't continue really performing necessarily, I definitely feel like I use it a lot. Like both creatively and also as a parent, with kids, because that's play basically. I mean, when you do a show, they call it playing or player. It makes sense that it's sort of like keeping a certain playful part of your brain alive a little bit.
I think so, and I think also able to like play with my kid in a way where I know that I'm showing him constructive ways to play.
Yeah.
Building on somebody else's idea and, things like that. It's definitely, I definitely use my old improv teaching come in when I'm just playing cards.
Yeah, if you're going to say no, you better do it in a funny way. Yeah. You can't just shut something down.
Yeah. You got to have something else coming up.
Well, dude, I mean, I have to mention History of the World Part 2. Fucking so funny. That Shirley Chisholm sitcom.
Yeah, so dude. Thanks, man. Another situation where I kind of go in and it's like, Kroll and Barinholtz, which to me is so fun because those are two different worlds for me. So
totally.
So Nick Kroll is, UCB and kind of that world in New York. And
he was in Little Man. Like, do you remember Little Man? And also Berbiglia. It was like a bunch of like Georgetown buddies or whatever.
The group. I remember their card. Yeah. Yes, man. Yeah. But then you have, Ike, who, Boom Chicago, madTV. And so like to go there and like see just everybody, it's just an incredible show, super fun to work on. So yeah, check it out. I'm in it a lot more than I thought I would be. I thought it was just going to be like one episode, but it's they spread the runner throughout. So
and Wanda Sykes is a fucking legend.
She's a legend, dude. Yeah, Wanda Sykes and Kim Whitley and Marla Gibbs, who's like royalty. And this to do like this and then do a sitcom with them. I mean.
It looked fun. It looked like you were having fun. Like
I had a blast. I had a blast.
It was one of those things where the fun is like contagious. You're like, that guy's having fun, so I'm having fun.
He's having a good
time. Dude, well, thank you so much for doing this.
Of course.
It's fucking always amazing to see you. And,
thank you, man.
And
be sure to check out The Recruit.
Oh, yeah.
Season 2 of The Recruit.
I saw that too. And that's some real acting, dude.
That's real acting. Yeah. That was his first non-comedy role that I've done. So, check it out. I play a grumpy CIA lawyer.
Yeah. All right, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Will.
Have a good one. Thank you, Colton Dunn. Really appreciate Colton being on the show. Colton, as you could tell, was a part of a lot of different scenes, which I always appreciated. Sometimes UCB could get a little insular, to put it mildly. Love hearing about Boom Chicago. Definitely curious to learn more about that scene because of the amount of talent that's come out of there, but also it's just a cool example of how a theater can affect the city it's in and vice versa. Life and Comedy is recorded at Jett Road Studios. Please rate and review and hand out some flyers if you feel like it. Also check out the show Instagram at lifeandcomedy_podcast. Next guest is Bobby Moynihan from SNL. We discuss the Lofi origin story and also Sideways Dracula, which is what it sounds like. Thank you for listening.